Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of JKL Media Reviews. And today we're talking about El Labertino del Fauno, or Pan's Labyrinth, the 2006 dark fantasy film directed and written by Guillermo del Toro. And I have with me my regular co-hosts, Jesse. Hello, Jesse.
Hello, Lou.
Karen.
Hello.
And with me, that makes the JKL and JKL Media. And I'd like to get to first thoughts from everybody on this film. Jesse was talking about movies he loved, and I'm not sure that he loved this one, but we'll find out. Jesse.
I was watching this. I had to rent it, which did not bother me. So I was like, did I rent the wrong version? Because this is in Spanish. So
Mhm.
I paused really quick and I looked and I go, okay, that's what it is. It wasn't dubbed, which
Nope.
I'm happy about. There's been a couple of times when the film looked like it would be good for me. And
Mhm.
when I started watching it, I could see they dubbed the English dialogue, and I was like, I just can't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So this was not something that I would normally pick. I don't think I've seen any of his films.
Oh my
I would
goodness.
have to look.
You never saw
I know,
Hellboy?
Yeah, I
yes, I
did
did
Hellboy.
see
He
Hellboy,
he did do that.
but I've not watched like Shape of Water
Oh.
or
Oh, that
anything
was
of that.
weird.
Yeah. So just didn't watch Pacific Rim. So I'm looking at it, yeah. But I enjoyed this one. It was at times a little slow for me, but overall it was a pretty good film.
Okay. Karen.
Yeah, I saw this a good 10 years ago, and it's one that my husband won't watch because of the subtitles. But, and this is lame, but I took Spanish in high school, so I didn't have to concentrate quite so hard on the subtitles because I got the, what do you call it? But from context clues, I got a
You
lot
got the
of
gist
the,
of it.
but again, I did have the subtitles on and it's much easier to watch that way. But wow, this movie, it was amazing when I watched it the first time and just as amazing this time in a lot of different ways, not
Mhm.
just story wise. Yeah, I love this movie.
Alrighty. I personally put this movie in my top 10 list. I think it's just a beautiful story of a girl having the ability to create a fantasy world, or did she? And to have it taking place during one of the worst times possible during a war. And the the contrast between those two worlds, each of them have their own monsters. It's up to you to decide which one is the worst one. Should also note that Pan's Labyrinth is the third in what has been come to be known as Del Toro's Spanish trilogy. The first one was Kronos, the second was The Devil's Backbone, and this one, the third one, the Pan's Labyrinth. And it's hard to believe that this film is almost 20 years old. It'll be
Yeah.
20 years next year. And there's a lot of things that I love about this movie, but I just think that the girl who plays Ophelia is just transcendent in this role. And I really can't say enough good things about this movie, and I've seen it a couple of times now. And the more times I see it, the more emotional I get, and I teared up at the end quite a bit. I guess I'm just getting to be an old
No,
crybaby,
I
but
did too.
I
Same
found
here.
it very touching. And I think the overriding thing that for me is it's just a beautiful looking film. The greens of the forests contrasted with the labyrinth are just so well done. And not I don't know any of these actors, but I found all their performances quite believable. And
Come on, Doug Jones, though.
yes, of course,
Okay.
but he's covered up in makeup. So some of the best creature designs I've ever seen. Nothing CGI here. It's all practical or and animatronic. So it just has a real grounded look to it. And I'm just going to throw it open to both of you. I'll start with you, Karen. What performances stood out to you in this movie?
Like you said, Ivana Baquero, who played Ophelia, she was amazing. And you can't give Doug Jones the short shrift here. I think his performance was to be commended as the fauna. He he learned all the lines in Spanish, even though he didn't know Spanish. And it was dubbed by someone else, but because he said the lines in Spanish, it matched with his mouth. And I really appreciate someone that goes to that lengths in order to really make a film great. I have never been disappointed by one of his performances, and I want to give him accolades as well. Maribel Verdú as Mercedes also was great. I think in this, she went through a lot of emotions and she wore a lot of masks. And I think she was wonderful as well. There's no duds in the cast, but those were standout performances, I think.
Yeah, I also would say that Sergei Lopez as Abdel, a movie is only as good as your villain, and I thought
Mm.
that he was really well done, and his backstory was interesting as well. Jesse, how about you?
At first, I was a little put off by the captain's performance.
Mm,
I thought it was a little too almost cartoonish.
okay.
Of course he smokes because he's the bad guy, and he even
Hmm.
smokes while he shaves. But then I realized that this is a fairy tale, and fairy tales, the villain should not be subtle.
Hmm.
They should be it's the evil queen.
Twirling mustache kind
Yeah,
of villain.
so when I started watching it as that eyes, I truly enjoyed everyone's performance. Ardell Verdu, who played Mercedes, I thought was really a very strong heroine. And I really loved how kind she was to Ophelia and how she tried to be strong. Doc Ferrero. So it's all the heroes of the story, of
Hmm.
the war story,
Yeah.
that I enjoyed a lot. I absolutely agree with you. Ophelia is strong as a young woman. And I read a little bit about how when they were casting it, Galmaro found her and immediately like something about, oh, this is it. And I'm thought of the myth that when they were filming the first Superman, Christopher Reeve was a gift.
Mm.
They did not know what they were getting, and then when they found him, they knew, okay, here's our he not only can play Superman, but he can play Clark Kent. So this ended up being a really an interesting story, and you're right, Lou, the dual stories of the very horrible reality of an evil stepfather coming into a city, coming into a new home where you're not really wanted. Your mother's trying to make it better. This is beautifully done, exactly all the fairy tales you read as a kid. But we talked about how Stephen King's fairy tale novel was a fairy tale tone with told with Stephen King's lens. So I am not a big Del Toro fan, but this does feel like, okay, I'm going to share my vision of a fairy tale. And
Mhm.
it was a really wonderful 2 hours.
Yeah, I've heard some people say it's a depressing movie, but I find it actually an
Mm.
uplifting movie that this girl can create such a wonderful alternate reality in the midst of such a terrible reality. And Del Toro wisely leaves a door open with the fact that how did she get out of her room unless that chalk worked on the wall again, right? But then he plays it the other way at the end when she's talking to the fawn and the captain comes into the labyrinth, and there's nothing there. Now you could argue that he can't see it because he's an adult, or that it's really she's creating this out of her own mind. I'm curious, Jesse, what did you find the opening confusing?
The opening of the
The movie?
chalk or just the
No,
movie?
the movie.
No,
It
kind
was
of,
running backwards because the blood was coming back into the girl.
Yeah, she
no,
was laying there and there was a voiceover and all that.
no, I did not catch that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah,
that book ends the end of the movie when the blood is flowing out of her. And
yeah,
also the lullaby that's being hummed at first in the beginning of the
yeah.
movie, you just, oh, that sounds pleasant. But then you find out later on in the middle of the movie that it's the lullaby that, I can't
Mer-
remember her name. Mercedes, I believe.
Yeah.
Mercedes sings to her, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the same one that she hums to her while Ophelia's lying there dying. And of course, Ophelia, the name itself is probably he pulled it from Shakespeare because that Ophelia, it was the love interest of Hamlet, and she also came to a bad end and died. So it's such an interesting take on a fairy tale. It's hard to balance the two stories because the adult story is so harsh and brutal, and yet Ophelia's fairy tale is is not all daffodils and sunshine either. So it's both of them are scary, but I would argue that the fairy tale one is more honest because the monsters look like the monsters. Though the fawn,
Mhm.
for the most part of the movie, you're not quite sure if it's being honest with her, which I found interesting. And I also love that the narration was done in the voice of her father. And we see the two parents at the end of the movie on the throne. So I thought that was all really nicely done, subtle touches. And the narrator had such a good voice too. Like
Mm.
it's even though it was in Spanish and I didn't understand a lot of it, but just the tone, you could tell. And I got the intimation that her father's death may have been suspicious. And I'm wondering if the
Hmm.
captain had something to do with it. I think he probably lusted after his wife and took her as his own. So there's a lot in there, Karen, that I'm just wandering all over the place because it's a hard movie to break down analytically. I think because it's a lot of it's a feeling, and
Right.
I just thought that no matter where you go, like the violence is very violent, it's very brutal. The sounds during the battle, the way they headshot each other to make sure that they're
Hmm.
dead. I guess
Yeah,
Del Toro said believed in that principle of unless you see the headshot, you don't know for sure if the person's dead or not. So just yeah, I'm just rambling here. I'm gonna leave it open to you to take it where you want to go with it.
sure. The actor that did the voiceover, Pablo Adan, he does a lot of voiceover stuff, and he
Oh,
was
okay.
also the voice of the faun, El Fauno,
Oh,
the fawn, sorry. He's the one that did the dub over Doug Jones's lines.
so he's like the Spanish Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. When anything is translated to Spanish, like an American movie or a British movie or whatever, he's always in line to do it. He's a big time narrator over there. I think he's also done some regular acting, but that's pretty much what he's known for,
Hmm.
is that. And I'm assuming that the king of the underworld was also her real life father, although that's the only time we see him. He's the tailor that died. I'm assuming. That's just me assuming it.
I think so.
Yeah, I do think that there was some foul play there. Again, he was killed in the war, and Captain Vidal was part of that, so he could have easily taken him out and grabbed the mother. I also think, and this is very insidious, but I think that the mother, oh God, Carmen, did not want to have sex with him. I think that he forced himself on her. That's just the tone I get, and that he kidnapped her essentially when he found out she was pregnant. And that makes him even worse to me. I think I get the feeling that he just never does anything nice for anyone. I think he had a camaraderie with his generals or whatever those guys were called, not generals, captains,
Yeah,
because he was angry when they were killed. And he seemed to be a little, I don't know, a little kind towards, what was it, Serrano, one
hmm
of his guards, and was very angry when he was killed. I do think that he is definitely a caricature, as Jesse said, but I also think that he may have been closer to true life than we might think. This was just after the Spanish War, and it was essentially the lead up to World War II. Hitler practiced with a lot of his weaponry that they had formulated and a lot of his I'm sorry,
ideology.
ideology. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't say that just now. He had a lot of contributions towards the Spanish War. And it was a civil war, the Spanish Civil War, between two factions. Essentially, the Republicans, who were the good guys, they were leftists, and what were they, the fundamentalists or something like
Spanish
that, who
Maquis.
were, yeah, they were the bad guys.
They were the fascists.
And they had been swayed by Hitler already, and they were defeated soundly. And Franco Francisco was the instigator of all this, and he's credited, his assassination is credited as the beginning of World War II, although there were lots of contributing factors there, Pearl Harbor and all that. Go ahead.
He's still dead. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chevy Chase.
There
Yeah,
is a whole group of people listening to this. What the hell is Jesse
right.
saying?
I did say Chevy Chase,
Yes,
so
you did.
it's
Yes.
an SNL bit when Chevy was the news
Yeah.
desk guy, and he said, "News bulletin: Franco Francisco is still dead."
Yeah.
So just so you guys know. Yeah. And of course, that's a good 30 years after it happened. So that was the humor of the bit. But yeah, it was interesting to see the historical aspects of it as well. That's how things went when the good guys, quote unquote, were fighting back against the people that had won the Spanish Civil War. And I like that they mentioned how there were troops storming the beaches at Normandy. So they even gave reference to that sort of thing. And I appreciated that as a history person. I would say history buff, but I am not a history buff. I just enjoy history. So that was cool. And I do think that there was a lot of villainy that was quite similar to this because they were empowered by Hitler and fascism, and especially people who were under the Axis powers. And this was like Francisco Franco, and then Mussolini was part of that Italian, Spanish kind of area. And I'm going off too much on this, but they were empowered. I do think Vidal was he was definitely over the top as a villain, killing the person a million times. That's definitely a trope, making sure the person's dead. And then the good guys did the same thing, which I thought was interesting as well. They didn't show any mercy whatsoever. I love that they saved Mercedes. And you said a lot of people think this is like a tragedy and you think it's uplifting. I think it's both. I think it can be a lot of different things. I think it's uplifting. I think it's depressing. I think there's a lot of hope and a lot of despair. I think it encompasses a lot of things. And I think also that the actors portrayed that really well. Mercedes as an example of that really showed all of her the contrast between how she had to act around Vidal and how she acted when she was away from him, I think really enforces her feelings because we see the mask and then we see her without the mask. But I don't know. I'm rambling as well. So let's go to Jesse so I stop.
So I don't know when to bring this up, so I'm bringing it up now.
Sure.
I read this or watched this as not that it wasn't happening in her mind. I watched this as it actually is happening to her. And the reason why he can't see the Farn is because he's an adult and he's evil. So it is interesting looking back that you very easily could have this is all in her mind as she's dying. That she, retroactively, I will not go long, but I will take just a couple minutes to share that the other night I had a dream that Linda and I, Linda's my wife, were living in Germany and we were meeting with a doctor to discuss having children.
Mm.
And it was this long, elaborate dream. And when we came back for a second appointment, in my dream, I go, wait a minute, I'm in my 60s. We can't have a kid. I wouldn't live to see them graduate from grade school, much
Dude,
less high school,
so many
Yeah.
right?
men have kids in their 60s.
Yeah, I'm not Tony Randall. And
Oh, that is a good example of
yeah,
that.
it was
Or
just
James
kind of,
Doohan. I think
yeah,
he
it
was
James
was,
80.
Doohan, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it was just funny that absolutely her mind could have given this all this happening to her as she's going. I choose to believe that this was a true fairy tale and that she truly was this princess that was
Hmm.
reborn and all this stuff. But I think it is wonderful that if you want to view this as someone who had a horrible life and then has dies with a dream life was really powerful and well done.
I think of it the same way you do, Jesse. There's a lot of clues to say that it is real.
Yep.
The chalk, the book, the mandrake root,
Yeah.
the statue down in the pit, the
Hmm.
well, whatever,
Yeah,
because they do show that it's there when she's dying. We do see the bug, and that could be construed as her making up the fairy kind of thing,
right.
because we
Hmm.
know that she reads fairy tales. Even at that point, she has been told not to believe in fairy
Yeah.
tales.
I love the transformation of the bug into the fairy too.
Oh, me too.
That
That
was
was
beautiful.
great.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think they give you enough clues that it's a strong possibility that this is real. And
And
I appreciate that.
and it could be either one, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain things that you have to go, how did she get out of the room if she wasn't able to use that magic
Right.
chalk?
Exactly.
That's one thing. The the other thing that I really like about this movie is how the captain gets his comeuppance by the end of the film.
Yeah.
He won't acknowledge that his father is very important to him.
Yeah.
And yet all he cares about is his that the mother carries his son and that he has a son. And then at the end, he's told that his son will never even know his name, which is a fate worse than death for him. Like that's his whole reason d'etre.
Man,
And
I love that because he wants to pass on the same thing with the watch and all that,
Please
like
tell
his
my
father
son.
did. And
Yeah.
Mercedes is, nope,
He won't
not
even,
happening.
yeah. I love that scene so much. The idea that, and he lies, my father did not have a watch, but then you see that he holds that watch with so much
he maintains it. And
reverence. Yes.
yeah, he's working
And
on it.
yeah, and not to be morbid, but if I had a choice between an unborn child and my wife, I'm picking the wife.
Yep.
Sure.
7 days a week and twice on Sunday. But he made it very clear, right? If you have to choose my son.
He didn't care about
So
Carmen.
no,
It was a prize to
yeah,
him.
she was the receptacle. That was it.
Right. And also a pretty wife, like a trophy wife, I
Yeah,
think.
like
Yeah.
at dinner, he made it, oh, my wife, she doesn't understand that she's
That
say
clock.
nothing.
Yeah. 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 Very.
He didn't care about her at
Yeah,
all.
very
Yeah.
condescending.
Yeah. He's very self-centered, to say the least, which comes to bite him back later on in the
I think he
movie.
cared about his captains more than he cared about Carmen.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of imagery in this movie that I think is just gorgeous. The
Mm.
opening shots when they're out, that when they have to stop because the mother's got sick,
Yeah,
and Ophia's walking around and she sees the bug for the first time, and then she picks up that stone eye and puts it in the statue. I just how green everything was. I think that's just beautiful. But one of my favorite scenes is when she's with her mother in bed and the mother's uncomfortable, the baby's restless, and she had to ask Ophelia to tell her brother a story, and then Del Toro zooms the camera in through the womb into the uterus,
yeah,
and there's the baby, the little boy, and he's telling her that story about the rose on the mountain. Just beautiful.
it really is. I thought the same thing as I was watching this. It is a beautifully filmed movie. I cringed for her when she got so dirty
Yeah,
Yes.
with the new dress. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this is not gonna go well. This is
yeah,
not gonna go well.
yeah, yeah. Karen, did you have any favorite
Mm.
shots or scenes that you really liked?
I really loved the whole thing is lush and beautiful. Even the scenes where she gets dirty
Yeah,
are incredibly detailed and
Yes.
and pretty to look at, even if you cringe. I do love the ending where they fly over the tree and you just see all this lush greenery and the tree and everything, and then it goes down and shows her with her parents.
Right.
Yeah.
That's yeah, because it doesn't go from the labyrinth into there, I don't think. I think it just goes down into the ground and it shows her because anyway, I might be getting them mixed up, but the shot that sticks in my head is that shot with the tree and the lush forest beyond it and all that. It's really so pretty. All the greens, really, even when you see the explosions off in the distance, it's
Hmm.
like there's a paradise between the good guy and the bad guy. And it's, you just know it's going to get ruined and you cry for it. And it's just so pretty to see all of that and the dichotomy between. And I do think, I'm not sure, but I do think that the scenes on the in the general's house and all that, I think those are washed out a bit,
Hmm.
right? They're not as vivid
Yeah, it's a bit
as,
monotone. Yeah.
yeah. And that really makes it's even pretty in that monotone type thing. It sets the tone so well. And then when it goes even 10 meters into the forest, it's just so pretty lush. You can almost feel it crunching beneath your feet. You can feel the mud as she's going through the mud. I know
Yeah.
what it's like to get muddy. I don't know if you guys do, but
Yep. Oh, yeah.
yeah, when I was young, I went a lot of places that I shouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
Mostly I rode my bike there and then I did something and then I rode my bike back and my mom was mad because my bike was all dirty. And I just really, there's so many things that it evokes memories because it's so strong. And I really enjoy his cinematography, especially here.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really sells the fact that the magical world is real is the sequence with the pale man, which is the guy with the hands in his eyes in his hands, is that she disobeys the fawn and eats two of the grapes. Now, if she was making all this up and she was making herself to be the real heroine of the princess of the story, she would not have taken those grapes. She would have gotten out of there scot-free, but
Right.
she didn't. She succumbed to the temptation. So I
Yeah,
think
she
that,
gave herself consequences if that's the case,
yeah,
right?
yes. And I thought that was a big selling point for the fairy tale being true. The other scene that I really love, and I think it's worth talking about, is the scene between Mercedes and the captain when he's about to torture her, and
Mm.
he leaves, he tells everybody else to go. She's just a woman. He has no respect for her, and Mercedes comes out and basically says that. Yet throughout the whole movie, she's been rolling this knife up into her apron, and it's this knife that finally comes into play. And he is so blind to the bot. Like she tells him, the reason I got away with it for as long as I did was because you never noticed me. You thought I was just because I was a woman that I was of no consequence. And yet she gets the biggest licks in on him, and that slitting of his mouth was like, wow.
Oh, visceral.
I thought when I was watching that, I don't know if Jesse's gonna like this part too much.
Yeah.
And then the
And
fish hook sewing. Oh,
yeah, he where he does his own
just
fixing. What I did not understand is why she just did not kill him right away.
Yeah.
And I realized for story purposes, but I was like, kill him. Just
I think she
just
was trying
destroy him.
to, but
Yeah, I think she was trying to.
Okay.
that knife
Um,
wasn't really,
it was only like that
yeah,
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, a
the
little
Um,
paring knife.
paring knife.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
and
think she was trying to, and when she realized time was cutting short
Yeah.
and she wasn't doing as much damage as she thought, she had to
to get
run.
out of there before
Yeah.
somebody
Right.
came back. Yeah, I think so too. So that, and then of course when she escapes into the forest, and you think, oh, this is it, she's done, and then the rebels attack and kill everybody. So that was really well done. And the other poignant moment, of course, is when the doctor gives the soldier with the stutter an overdose. And then he tells the
Hmm.
captain, he says, what a world it must be that you live in where you think everybody will do just what you command.
Yeah.
And then he walks out and the captain shoots him in the back. Again, an incredibly well done scene.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
was, and I was really that when he talked about, you talk about a good death.
Yeah,
This was very sad, but the doctor doing that, giving the young man a pain-free death, was really strong. I
especially since the movie has laid it out that the doctor's not the most courageous of men to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thought I had was, okay, Captain, that's how antibiotics come. That's
Mm,
not a
doesn't
clue
prove
that,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to
but
him,
he
it was
he was
enough.
dumb.
Yeah, he
It,
was.
his ego made him dumb.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think he just compared the two. And I think that scene has so much impact because of the doctor. We know the doctor actually went with Mercedes to tend to the soldiers, and
Yeah.
knowing that soldier was part of what gave him courage. That was his last straw.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if he got caught, so be it.
Yeah.
But he couldn't just let it go. And he was also angry about the wife and the kids. And I just
Yeah.
think he was at it was his very breaking point, his very last breaking point. And the way that Vidal shot him was, I think, one of the most impactful killings in the whole movie because he shot him and the doctor continues to walk
Yeah.
until he can't walk anymore. And then he gets shot a couple more times after he falls. But I think that scene was really well played.
Mhm.
So here's where I'm going to not counter, give an alternate thought. I always appreciate the fact that in this world, I would not do this in real life, but I am not a violent person. But as I'm watching a spy film or an action adventure, it's of course you would make sure they're dead because you're moving forward. You don't want them behind your back attacking you.
Right.
So I did not think it was cruel when he shoots another bullet. I just think that's being effective. Now,
Right.
he's evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you think that he was going to kill those farmers anyway with the rabbits?
Yeah.
Next time, search
Yeah.
them more carefully, he says.
Yeah.
But I think he was going to kill him anyway.
I actually think that if they had like he was angry at his underlings, the
Mm.
because if they had found the rabbits, go, go. Why they were wasting his time. But once they were brought to him, he's I've got to look strong to these
Yeah.
people. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
the
don't think he told
brutality.
them.
Yeah, the
Do you
brutality
think
of
he
it.
told his captains to let people go? I don't think he did. I
Hmm.
think anyone that was even near his property, he wouldn't have let go.
Okay, that's interesting thought.
He
Maybe.
was
I could
hiding.
see that.
He was hiding up in the mountains.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my opinion.
No,
Yeah,
good thought.
it's a possible. It's interesting that Del Toro has come out and said that he intended for the fantasy, the fairy tale world to be real in the movie, but he also said that it's left open for interpretation, which I find interesting that all three of us are on the side that the fairy tale world was real. Maybe that just says something about our character, or maybe this says something about how well the movie was done, or maybe it's a bit of both. It's hard to say, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just think that
Well, I want a happy ever after, and I think
yeah,
that colors my view a little bit. But I've also seen movies where they leave it up to interpretation, and I'm like, okay, that it didn't happen. Inception being one of those. I think he was in the dream world and never came out, so there wasn't a happy ending for him there. It's just that for me, that's how that shook out. But I want to believe that this was real.
yeah, especially given how horrible the werewolf was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I also love the epilogue where the narration says that she returned to the underworld as the princess and she ruled with kindness and justice for many centuries and left little traces of her time in the human realm, visible only to those who know where to look. And then we see the flower budding on that she saved.
Yep.
Just, yeah, I just think it's a beautiful movie. It's not I don't think it's too hard to take in, except for the violence. It's pretty graphic at times, like when he's smashing that wine bottle into the farmer's son's face, stuff like that. It's pretty brutal. But the juxtaposition of that real world with the fairy tale world just really works so well for me. Even though the fairy tale world is scary too, there's a there's a honesty and beauty about it at the same time. Like as grotesque as the monsters were, the pale man with the eyes and the hands and
Yeah.
the fawn, and to a lesser degree the fairies, which were insects but in the real world, I guess you could say. I just thought it was all I just can't speak enough of how beautifully shot this film was done. I just love it to death from that aspect, as well as the story aspect as well.
One,
Um,
yeah,
Final thoughts for you, Jesse?
one of the things that I thought was this is a beautiful film, and I really appreciate this, the idea of telling this story. And it is I I don't know if I'll go back and see this one again. It did not speak to me on a level like some films do, but I'm certainly glad I spent the time with it. It was, in a lot of ways, a really beautiful story
Hmm.
that I'm glad I got to spend. And I do agree, the performances all the way around were very, especially, I'm curious if the actress who played the young girl did something later.
Yeah,
Still an
Because
actress.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's been in a bunch of movies and TV series, but nothing to the level of Pan's Labyrinth, or at least hasn't caught the public attention to the same degree.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that could be difficult to watch a second time or a third time. To me, it's been long enough that I felt this renewed kind of awe watching it a second time. But like you, I'm not going to go out and watch it tomorrow. It's incredibly good, but it is a difficult movie to watch more than once. I'm trying to find the exact name of it, but there's a movie that I loved. Okay, but I don't think I could ever watch it again. Is Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
No.
I
It
have.
has it's Steve Carell in it, and it ends poorly.
It's a very sad ending,
Very sad.
which
And
it tells you right up front, this
oh
is
yeah,
what it's going to be. But yeah, it's still,
you don't expect a good ending,
yeah, but
to be
still.
fair. But yeah, it's one of those movies that I loved when I saw it, and I thought, okay, I will never watch this movie again because it's just so depressing. This one, it it ascends past that for me. I most likely down the road will get in a mood and I'll watch it again. To me, it's that good, but it's not going to be this year for me, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. And I don't think it's the subtitles that's not that, but
It's the emotional impact of it to
yeah, it's
me.
the emotions of the
Yeah, it
story. I
wrings
mean,
things out of you.
like I was tearing up during
Oh
those
yeah.
last scenes when she started humming that lullaby again. I thought, oh,
Yep.
geez.
Yep.
Because then it takes on a totally different meaning. At the beginning, you go, "Oh, this is a nice little song."
Mm.
Now she's comforting her
As she
as
dies,
she
which
dies. It's
is
yeah, totally different
it's so
concept.
heart-wrenching.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
seeing her mother in the afterworld
Mm.
also gives you, if you want to believe that this is just in her mind, that is proof for that, that
Sure.
this is just in her imagination. Because, okay, what are the logistics of why would her mother be the
Right.
queen, right?
I
yeah.
would say
And her father, the king.
if
Yeah,
you want to think about it a little bit, they're magical beings. So
right.
they can comfort her by appearing
I
the
like that.
same way as her mother and father.
I
And
like,
that's just my kind of thought about it.
no, I like that hand wave a lot.
Sure. I have some facts about the movie if you want to
Sure.
hear them.
Sure.
This went to Cannes and it got the longest standing ovation ever in Cannes history, a 22-minute standing ovation.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Think
Mm.
about it. That's
Yeah.
almost a half hour.
Mhm.
The captain's room where he's shaving and his desk and everything, it's laid out like the watch. It's a circular room with the same kind of layout as the inside of his watch.
Oh.
So I found that interesting. Doug Jones's two characters were mostly practical effects. There were a few things, they weren't digital, but a few things that had to be adapted a little bit, like the fawn's legs and things like that.
Yeah.
And he had to look out of the nose of the pale man because so they had to make that mask a little longer and make it saggy in the neck so that he could be down a little bit. He also did animatronics. The toad was an animatronic, and Guillermo performed the noises of the frog, which I found interesting as
Yeah.
well. The mandrake was animatronics and CGI. He wanted the fairies to look like little monkeys, like in
Mm.
The Wizard of Oz.
All right.
And a lot of this was inspired from his lucid dreams as a child. So
Mm.
he definitely has a good imagination.
Indeed. Indeed. All right, so that wraps up our conversation about Pan's Labyrinth. As I said, for me, this is in my top 10 all-time movies. I just think it's a gorgeously told and filmed story. And it's like Karen said, it's oddly enough, though, it's not one that you'll run back to very every year, not like a Shawshank Redemption for me. But every time I do watch it, and the more times I watch it, the more emotionally impactful I think it becomes. And I can't recommend it highly enough. And I should correct something I said earlier that this was part of the Spanish trilogy. That the first film, Kronos, is a Spanish film, but it's not part of the trilogy. The trilogy starts with The Devil's Backbone, which starts at the beginning of the Spanish Civil War. This one is in the middle. He had planned a sequel to
Mm.
this called 3933. Whether that's a working title or not, I don't know. But that was going to take place in the aftermath of the Spanish War. But that's when he ran into scheduling conflicts with Hellboy, so he never got around to filming it. And I guess by the time he got through everything else he's done, he's no longer interested in coming back to it. So it's an unfinished trilogy in that aspect. But and someday maybe we'll visit Devil's Backbone, which is a ghost story. So
Yeah, that's good too.
yeah,
I don't like it as much as Pan's Labyrinth,
no,
for sure.
yeah,
But I
it's
think this is
still
my
good.
favorite Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah,
And
it is mine too.
my low point with him is Pinocchio,
Oh, I
which
haven't
I
seen
don't
that.
find good.
Mine's the one with the house. Is it the Crimson House or I don't know what it's called.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm not
But
sure.
yeah, because that was just weird to have this beautiful mansion and then the lobby, there's all this mud coming out of the ground. I'm going, why wouldn't you fix this or
And
move?
The Shape of Water was very weird,
I
but
love that movie.
yeah, but I like it more than
Yeah,
Pinocchio for
I think
sure.
that's a good movie too.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, very stylistic as well, like this
Pacific
one.
Rim, also good.
It's okay. It's a good action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he did Blade 2. I like the Blade movies.
Oh, that's
Very
right. Yeah,
interesting.
Blade 2 was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was better than the first Blade, to be
Yeah,
honest.
for sure.
But yeah, so he's done a lot of really good stuff and some pretty bad stuff. Pinocchio was
Yeah.
really not good. I was so
Yeah.
excited for it,
He had
and
that Netflix anthology series, Cabinet of Curiosities, and
mm,
I didn't think it was very good either.
yeah.
Sorry,
Hmm.
Del
Sometimes
Toro.
he phones it in, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I just think maybe his vision exceeds what's possible
Mm,
from a budget perspective. But
sure.
yeah. Alrighty. So that's the Pan's Labyrinth for you. I was a little worried suggesting it to Jesse because I know he's not really into horror, and I thought this is violent at times, but I'm glad you got through it okay.
No, it was fine. I watched right before I watched this, I watched Amazon now has The Accountant 2,
Oh yeah, we saw that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
which is just silly but fun and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and talk about violent, but just almost cartoon violence. No, I was really glad. One of the things, and we say this a lot often, is we get to explore things we normally wouldn't explore doing this as a podcast and spending time with my buddies. So yeah,
Yep.
very
Yeah.
happy.
Absolutely.
I'm weirder than you guys, though.
I don't know about that, Karen. I
Come
Yeah,
don't
on.
know. I'm pretty weird too.
Barbie and Idiocracy
there we
came for
go.
me,
Yeah.
but
Speaking of political, I'm going to go. It's my turn next. And anyone knows me that I love Aaron Sorkin and West Wing and Sports Night. And so he did a film in 2020, The Trial of the Chicago Seven. And so that's what we're going to pick next. We haven't done an Aaron Sorkin project. I think it's very timely and it was an all-star cast, so I'm really looking forward to getting to spend time watching it again and then discussing it with you guys.
Yeah, I agree. I
Fantastic.
actually liked Sacha Baron Cohen in it, which is saying something for me.
Yeah, if someone wants to reach you, Lou, how can they?
They can do that via this YouTube channel, JKL Media, where of course we co ho where of course we host all our discussions about our various one-offs that we all choose, and the Pan's Labyrinth is another example of that. You can also find me over at Lou's Reviews on YouTube, where I have my writers podcast as well as the archive of our Babylon 5 journey, which includes all 5 seasons plus the animated movie from 2023, I think now. Time
Yes.
flies. And I also have my Stephen King podcast where I've just haven't done much lately, but I have finished reading Never Flinch and I want to do a
Mm.
podcast. I don't know if Jesse and Karen are interested in doing that
I
or I
haven't
can
I haven't
pursue.
finished it yet, but yes, I definitely want to talk about it.
Okay.
I
Uh,
finished it this week,
all
and
right.
and we'll cut all this out, but Karen, if you end up getting finished, we can talk about that next week if we
Okay,
want,
I
and then
will be
skip.
finished by next week.
Do you want to do that, Lou, to
Sure.
keep it? Yeah, okay, cool, cool,
Sure.
cool.
That would be great.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
great.
And on Twitter and YouTube, you can find me at Lou W. dot Sitsma. And I think that's it. Karen, how
All
about
right.
you?
Okay. I am at Oliveria on many social media platforms, and my blog is alistuff.com. Oh, and you can reach us at JKL Media Reviews at gmail.com.
Jesse.
I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. We have wrapped up the latest season of Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. Very sad that we have lost this doctor and curious where they're going to go next. But we will go back to talking classic Who in a couple of weeks. I continue to talk John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast, where we are still on the L's, though we are getting close to wrapping up the L's. And my main podcast, Set Lusting Bruce, where I talk to people all about their love of music. And on Tuesday, I have the lead singer from the number one Irish Bruce Springsteen cover band, Nigel Brothers. And that was a fun conversation. So be sure and check that out.
That's cool. Lou, are your feelings hurt that he said that was his number one podcast?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
It's his podcast. It's not our podcast.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
good.
our podcast. Yeah.
I see. Good
Well,
save.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's 10 years, 1,400 episodes. It's the Mothership podcast. Put
For
that. Not
you.
my favorite. Yes, it is the
Okay.
Mothership podcast. It is my bread and butter, but no,
Dude,
by far, best hour of every
we did
week.
Storming the Castle. Could that not be your flagship podcast?
Oh, good point. Good point.
Come on. I'm just kidding.
I'm still surprised that you guys did a podcast about that show, but hey, that was
There were some really lively discussions.
I bet
We
there
did.
were.
Yeah,
There's weirder shows that have podcasts.
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
all right. Let's head out. Everybody out there, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.